أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 194, Surah Ash-Shuara. كذبت قوم لوط. The people of Lut denied. Who? Al-Mursaleen, the messengers. They also denied the messengers. When? إذ قال لهم أخوهم لوط. When their brother Lut alayhi salam said to them. What did he say to them? ألا تتقون? The same message. Will you not fear Allah? Do you not fear Allah? What are you doing? Think about your actions. Have you no fear of Allah? If you think about it, Lut alayhi salam did not belong to the nation that he was sent to as a messenger. He did not belong to the same tribe. Isn't it so? He was related to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and they were from Iraq, from the city of Ur. And when they immigrated from there, Ibrahim a.s. sent Lut a.s. to these cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So, why is he called their brother? Because remember, ukhuwa is of two types, right? One is through deen, and the other is through nasab. He wasn't related to them. So why is he called their brother? He lived amongst them. He lived in the same area. He lived in their land, in their cities, and because of that, he was understood as one of them. What does it show to us? That even if a person is not originally from a particular land, even if he is an immigrant, once he begins to live over there, then he becomes one of the people. Do you understand? He becomes one of the people. He becomes a part of them, whether they accept him or not. And also he is called their brother. Why? Because figuratively, the brother of a person is who? The one who is very sincere to him. The one who is on very friendly terms with him. So because of his sincerity, because of his well-wishing towards them, he is called their brother. What did he say to them? أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ? Do you not fear Allah? What do we see? That all messengers, they came with the same message. Salih a.s., he said the same thing. Previously, all of the messengers, they said the same thing to their people. أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ? Do you not have fear of Allah? Because the most important factor in a person reforming himself is what? The fear of Allah. If a person has fear of Allah, then he will be concerned about correcting himself, reforming himself. And if he does not have the fear of Allah, he will not be concerned about improving his behavior. And what is meant by fearing Allah? What is meant by having taqwa of Allah? That when a person is about to speak, he thinks, is this statement of mine going to be acceptable to Allah? Or is it going to displease Him? When he is about to leave some important work, he thinks, is it going to make Allah happy with me? Is it going to make Him upset with me? When he's walking somewhere, when he's going somewhere, he thinks, is it going to lead me to the pleasure of Allah or to the anger of Allah? When he's about to eat, again he thinks, is this food approved by Allah or is it something that is disapproved by Allah? So before he does anything, he considers the pleasure of Allah in every matter. He considers the anger of Allah in every matter. Does it lead to his pleasure? Does it lead to his anger? And this is what keeps a person straight. This is what keeps a person concerned about the limits that Allah has set. Then he will not commit israf. Then he will not become selfish. Then he will not be concerned only about his desires. No, he will be concerned about other people as well. Inni lakum rasulun ameen. Indeed, I am to you a trustworthy messenger. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. So fear Allah and obey me. This is repeated for emphasis. وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ. And I do not ask you for it any payment, because in أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. My payment is only from who? The Lord of the worlds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think about it, the difference between one messenger to the next was of many, many years, several years. They came to different nations, different places, at different times. But if you see their basic characteristics, their basic qualities were all the same. Isn't it so? All of the messengers, they gave the same message. Fear Allah, obey me. I am to you a sincere messenger, a mean messenger, one who is trustworthy. And I do not expect any reward from you. Why? Because all of the messengers, they brought the same message. This is the evidence behind that. All of the messengers were sent by who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they brought the same message to the people. And this is why they shared their characteristics. Although there was a difference of many, many years. What does this show to us? That when people have the same mission, when people have the same goal, when people have the same purpose, then wherever they may be, whoever they may be, whenever they may be, their hearts are united. Do you understand? They will have the same goal, and as a result, their hearts will be united. They will not differ in their thinking. They will not differ in their goals. They will not differ in their characteristics, in their qualities, because they have the same purpose. And on the other hand, if people differ with regards to their goal, their ultimate goal, then even if they're living together, will they be united? No. People may be living in the same household, but because both have a different goal in mind, what's going to happen? They're going to be miles apart, despite the fact that they're living in the same room. They're living in the same house. Perhaps they're tied to one another through some marriage contract or some other kind of relationship. But because the goal is different, this is why they will be very far apart from one another. They will be very different from one another as well. And if people have the same goal, then they will share their characteristics. So what do we see over here? That all of the prophets of Allah, they brought the same message. Why? They had the same characteristics. Why? They had the same goal. And we see that all of the messengers, what did they say? Fear Allah. And the fear of Allah, the love of Allah, all of the messengers promoted that. Whether it was Lut a.s. or Salih a.s. or Hud a.s. or the Prophet ﷺ. This is what connected them. This is what united all of them. And when a person works in this way, that his goal, his ultimate goal, is to impart the love of Allah, the fear of Allah in the hearts of people, to instill that in the hearts of people, then what happens? He does not expect any form of reward from the people. What is his goal? He wants to instill the fear of Allah in the hearts of people. Then he does not expect any return from them. Lut a.s., he said, I do not expect any return from you. Why? Because his goal was to instill the fear of Allah in the hearts of people. Salih a.s., he said the same thing. All of the messengers, they said the same thing. Why? Because their goal was to instill the fear of Allah. And when people work in this way, then they work selflessly. They do not become selfish. And when they work in this way, then they take up any work that is given to them, even if it is difficult. When a person is working for the sake of Allah, then what happens? He knows that every effort of his is going to be counted, is going to be rewarded for. Therefore, even the most difficult task, what happens to it? It becomes easy. Isn't it so? Even if it's a lot of work, it becomes easy. Because he knows that every effort is going to be counted. Every effort is going to be paid for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, people who work for certain companies, and if, let's say, their gas is covered, their insurance is covered, their car is covered, maybe their housing is covered, certain expenses of theirs are covered, their health is covered, then what happens? What happens? They use those facilities lavishly. Isn't it so? If, let's say, their medications are all covered by their company, then what's going to happen? They're going to go on buying one thing after the other. And if they have to pay themselves, then they will be very, very concerned. So, when a person realizes that every effort of mine is being considered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is going to pay me for it, then he doesn't think, I have done so much, I do not need to do any more. What I've done is sufficient, what I've done is enough. No. He will take up every other task. He will never think what he's done is sufficient. And no matter how difficult the task may be, he will do it. Why? Because he's doing it exclusively for the sake of Allah. Now if you look at it, what Lut a.s. was doing was not something easy. You're in a foreign land, you're an immigrant over there, very few people are like you. And on top of that, the religion of the people, the way of life of people is also very different. And if you tell them to change their ways, they're very hostile. Is this an easy task? It's not an easy task at all. It's a very difficult task. But what is it that gave him the courage to do it? He was doing it for the sake of Allah. And when a person does something for the sake of Allah, then no matter how difficult it may be, he will do it. Because he knows Allah is going to pay him for it. He reproached the people that أَتَأْتُونَ الذُّكْرَانَ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ, do you approach males from among the worlds? الذُّكْرَان is a plural of ذَكَر. Who is ذَكَر? Male. That in order to fulfill your desire, you approach men, min al-alamin, out of all the people of the worlds. What does it mean by this? That out of all the people of the worlds, it is you who does it. You are the only ones who are committing this vile deed. No one else does this but you, min al-alamin. It's just you. And never before has anyone committed this action before you. Because this deed was unknown. It was unknown. It was not common at all. Before the people of Lut a.s. and also outside of this nation. In Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 80, we learn, وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. And Lut a.s., when he said to his people, do you commit such immorality as no one has preceded you with from among the worlds? No one ever has committed this action before you. What do people say today? It's been there from the beginning. And they say things such as it's in the genes of people. But what do we see? That they were the first ones to initiate this evil deed. وَتَذَرُونَ, and you all leave مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ, that which your Lord has created for you. مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ, of your wives. بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ عَادُونَ, rather you are a people who are transgressing. What does it mean by this? وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ, that you leave that which Allah has created of your spouses, of your wives. Azwaj is a plural of zawj, and over here it gives meaning of wife. That you forsake the wives that your Lord has created for you. In order for you to fulfill your sexual desire, who has Allah created for you? Your wives. Because the human beings, the male and the female, together they fulfill their desires, and they have been created for one another. What do we learn? That Adam a.s., from him, his wife was created. Why? لِيَسْكُنَ إِلَيْهَا, so that he could find comfort and peace in her. And secondly, this has also been understood as that min azwajikum, that from your women, that which Allah has created for you to enjoy, you leave that. And you do that which is forbidden. What is the correct way of approaching one's wife? We have learned in Surah Al-Baqarah 222 that فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهِ, that approach your wives from where Allah has commanded you. Meaning from where Allah has allowed you to do so. And what is that? The vagina, the place of fertility. But these people, instead of approaching their wives correctly, what would they do? They would approach their wives from behind. Anal sex. And this is something that is forbidden. So he tells them that what is wrong with you? وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ عَادُونَ, you're transgressing people. You're crossing all the limits. You're transgressing the limits of halal, and entering into haram. You're crossing the limits of aql, of sharia, of fitrah. You're doing something that goes against the mind, that goes against nature, that goes against common sense. What are you doing? So he reproaches them very firmly. Or what was the reaction of the people? قالوا, they said, لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهِ يَا لُوطْ, if you do not stop, O Lut, تَنْتَهِ نُونْ هَيَا, if you do not stop here, O Lut, if you do not stop preaching to us, لَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُخْرَجِينَ, then surely you would be of those who are expelled. We're going to expel you. You could go away from here. They began threatening him, instead of paying attention to what he was telling them. What are they saying? Why are you admonishing us? And if you think we are wrong, go, leave. We're not forcing you to stay here with us. If you don't want to become like us, then just leave. We'll expel you. So you better stop reproaching us. In Surah An-Naml, ayah 56, we learn, فَمَا كَانَ جَوَابَ قَوْمِهِ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا أَخْرِجُوا آلَ لُوطٍ مِّنْ قَرْيَتِكُمْ إِنَّهُمْ أُنَاسٌ يَتَطَهَّرُونَ. That the only response of his people was that they said, expel the family of Lut from your city. Indeed, they are people who keep themselves very pure. So when he tried to stop them from this evil that they were committing, what was the reaction of the people? Go away from here. Don't tell us. Don't stop us. So what was the reaction of Lut alayhi salam? Did he compromise? Did he feel that he is going to be evicted from that land and he will not have any place to go then? No. Very confidently he said, قَالَ إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. Indeed, I am toward your deed of those who detest it. I hate your deed. I hate what you do. The way they rejected Lut alayhi salam's message. Lut alayhi salam rejected their deed. They rejected his message, he rejected their deed. He didn't come under pressure. He didn't succumb to their threats. He didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, do whatever you want, don't expel me. No. He clearly told them, I hate what you do. I disapprove of your actions. Fine, you don't listen to me. Fine, you don't change your ways. You threaten me. Do whatever you want, but remember that I hate what you do. إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. Al-Qaleen is a plural of Qal. And this is from the root letters Qaf Lam Ya or Qaf Lam Waw. Qaf Lam Waw or Qaf Lam Ya. And Qala is used for frying meat or to cook meat, to bake meat, to roast it. You may have heard of lahm maqli. What is lahm maqli? Meat that is barbecued or roasted. And qala yaqlu is to be upset with someone and hence dislike them. It is when you're upset with someone, you're very angry with them, you hate what they did, and as a result you end up disliking them as well. What do we learn in Surah Al-Duha? مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Same word. That your Lord has not abandoned you, nor does He hate you. And qalbun, from the same root, qalbun, is to throw something. What does it mean? To throw something away. Like for example, it is said, قَالَتِ النَّاقَةُ بِرَاكِبِهَا. That the she-camel, it threw its rider. So, figuratively this word means to strongly detest something. Why? Because when you strongly detest something, what happens? You want to get rid of it. You want to throw it away. Isn't it so? You distance yourself from it. You cannot bear it anymore. So, إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. I hate what you do. I cannot stand what you do. I dislike it with all my heart. And if it were up to me, I would throw it away from here. I would get rid of this action. إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. So what do we see over here? That Lut alayhi salam, first of all, he used his tongue to stop the people. When you see something wrong, what is your responsibility? That you have to use your hands. If you cannot use your hands, then what do? Use your tongue. And even if you're not able to do that, then what should you do? hate the action, hate the sin in your heart. Now Lut alayhi salam, he was able to stop them by his tongue. So he did that. And when they refused to change, then at least he disliked the action in his heart and he told them. He told them that he disapproved of that action of theirs. And this is something very, very important. When we see something wrong, just because everyone is doing it, we cannot accept it. Do you understand? Just because it's the norm, just because people are doing it with a lot of confidence, it doesn't mean we accept it. No. We have to stand up against it. And if we do not have that power to do so, then what do we have to do? Show our disapproval. Show our dislike. We cannot say, yes, it's okay. Do whatever you want. You do whatever you want, we do whatever we want. No. You have to show that you dislike that action. You cannot approve of it. Because once you approve of it, then you also become guilty of it. You understand? Because if a person is amongst some people who are committing something wrong, and he dislikes that action, he does not agree with it, he will not be considered as a part of them. But if a person is not even in their company, he's away from them, but he approves of that action, then it is as though he is a part of them. So it is very, very important that when we see something wrong, especially something as this, we cannot accept it. We have to say, this is not right. We have to oppose it verbally at least. We learn in Surah Hud, ayah number 80, that Lut alayhi salam, he said, قَالَ لَوْ أَنَّ لِي بِكُمْ قُوَّةً أَوْ آوِي إِلَى رُكْنٍ شَدِيدٍ. If only I had against you some power, or I could take refuge in a strong support. If only I had some power, I would stop you physically. But because I don't have that, I am stopping you verbally. And you don't want to listen to me? إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. And this is a requirement of Iman. إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. That you have to hate the wrong action. One thing is very important. He doesn't say, I hate you. What does he say? I hate your action. And this is something very important. Because if we hate the action, then we are going to have well-wishing for the person. We are going to be concerned about them. And no matter what they say to us, we're going to keep trying to correct them. We're going to keep trying to reform them. But the moment you develop dislike for the person, then even if they're doing something good, are you going to be concerned about them? No. Are you going to like them? No. And if they're doing something bad, are you going to be concerned about reforming them? No, not at all. As long as you dislike the action and not the person, then you will have well-wishing in your heart for that person. But the moment you begin to dislike the person, then you will not have any well-wishing for him. Now once a person dies on that crime, on that action, then obviously you hate that person as well. But until he is alive, you are supposed to hate that action. Because only then you can help him. So he says, إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُمْ مِنَ الْقَالِينَ. And then he prayed to Allah, رَبِّ نَجِّنِي, that, oh my Lord, save me, وَأَهْلِي, and also my family, مِمَّا يَعْمَلُونَ, from what they do. What does it mean by this? Save me and my family from what they do. Keep us away from this evil action. And also, keep us safe from the consequences of their deed. That we are amongst them. We are living amongst them. But do not make us amongst them when your punishment descends on them. This is just like we read earlier, that the Prophet ﷺ was told that make dua, that, oh Allah, if you are to show me the punishment that is going to be sent to these people, then don't make me amongst them. رَبِّ فَلَا تَجْعَلْنِي مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. So, similarly, Lut a.s. he prayed that رَبِّ نَجِّنِي وَأَهْلِي مِمَّا يَعْمَلُونَ. Save us from this deed and save us from the consequence of this deed. Don't let us get affected by it at all. And this is something very important. Because many times what happens, when we are living among some people and they're doing something wrong openly, a point comes where we become very used to it. We tend to accept it. We don't see any problem in it. So he is saying, don't let us get affected by it. And if a punishment comes, don't make us of those people. So what happened? فَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ أَجْمَعِينَ. So we saved him and his family altogether. Except for who? إِلَّا عَجُوزًا فِي الْغَابِرِينَ. Except an old woman among those who remain behind. Who does an old woman refer to? His wife. And arjuz is from the root letters. Ain, Jim, Zay. Rijz is to be unable. And from that arjuz is used for someone who is very old. In particular an old woman. Why? Because she isn't able to do many things that she could do before. And this is why the word qawa'id is also used for who? Older women. Because compared to men, they become more immobile. So, إِلَّا عَجُوزًا فِي الْغَابِرِينَ. She remained in who? Those who remained behind. And who does the Ghabirin refer to? The nation, the people of Lut a.s. So, it is said that the wife of Lut a.s., she left with him. When the angels came and they told Lut a.s. leave, the punishment is going to come. And when he left with his family, his wife accompanied him. But remember they were told that they should not look back when the punishment is coming? So it is said that she looked back towards them. Why? Because she had sympathy towards them. Her heart was attached to them. She approved of their actions. So even though she was not involved in that crime herself, she was not amongst those people anymore, but because she approved of it, she met the same fate. You understand? This is something very, very frightening. That although she was not involved in the crime, she never committed that action herself. She was a wife of a prophet eventually. And secondly, she was not even in the people anymore. She left with Prophet Lut a.s. But because her heart was attached to them, she approved of their actions. What happened? The same punishment that afflicted the people also came upon her. إِلَّا عَجُوزًا فِي الْغَابِرِينَ ثُمَّ دَمَّرْنَا الْآخَرِينَ. And then we destroyed the others. Who? Those people who remained behind. How were they destroyed? That وَأَمْطَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ مَطَرًا. And we rained upon them a rain. What kind of rain was it? A rain of stones. فَسَاءَ مَطَرُ الْمُنْذَرِينَ. So how evil was the rain of those people who were warned? How was it evil? It did not bring any benefit. Rather, it brought only destruction. It brought only death and ruin. A shower of stones was sent upon them. And you could imagine, a shower of stones, what kind of destruction and loss it would cause to the people. فَسَاءَ مَطَرُ الْمُنْذَرِينَ. How evil was the rain of those people who were warned. In Surah Hud, ayah 82, we learn, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا جَعَلْنَا عَالِيَهَا سَافِلَهَا وَأَمْطَرْنَا عَلَيْهَا حِجَارَةً مِّن سِجِّيلٍ مَنْضُودٍ. So when our command came, we made the highest part of the city its lowest. The highest part of the city was made what? Its lowest part. Why? Because they were overturned. Al-Mu'tafikat. And rained upon them stones of layered hard clay. Layered hard clay. Such stones. Imagine how hard they must have been. So this is the punishment that came upon them. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً. Indeed, in that is surely a sign. وَمَا كَانَ أَكْثَرُهُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. But still, most of them do not believe. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ. And indeed, your Lord, He is the exalted in might, and He is merciful. Mighty against who? The Ghabirin. And merciful towards who? Lut alayhi salam and his companions, his family. We listen to the recitation. So what is the ayah in this incident? We see that many people, they say about homosexuality that it's a very personal choice, it's a personal act, it doesn't really affect other people, so why should other people be concerned about it? But we see that it has far-reaching consequences. Like over here, when the men were going towards other men only to enjoy sexually, who was getting deprived? The women. They were getting deprived. So when a person becomes selfish about his own desires only, then in the end, he is depriving other people of their rights. You understand? What about women's rights? People talk a lot about homosexuals' rights, but what about women's rights? What about their spouses' rights? What about the other people who live in the society? What about their rights? We see that we are exposed to so many wrongs, not just this wrong, but so many ills in the society. But we have become so accepting of them that we don't even consider them to be evil anymore. Lut alayhi salam, first of all, he goes and stops them. We hardly ever do that. If we see somebody doing something wrong, we say it's their choice. Let them do it. Everybody has the freedom to do it. But he goes and stops them. And then what? If they don't stop, does he give up over there? No. Inni li'amalikum min al-qaleen. We still have to hate the wrong action. And we have to show our disapproval. We cannot say everything is okay. No, everything's not okay. Something that Allah has forbidden, we have to hate it. We have to dislike it. What else? We see that this evil is everywhere and we have such a normal attitude towards it. And we think that if we just protect our families, we'll be okay. But the fact is that how much can you protect your children when this evil is rampant everywhere? You have to actively speak up against it. You have to actively go against it, because if you don't, then eventually your children also will get affected. And we see that this is not just something that is common within people who are not Muslim, but even this is something that is becoming common within Muslims. Because we think it's okay. We think it's not a big deal. And it's common everywhere. I remember I went to the library once to get some books for my son. And I was so amazed that I found a book in which a little girl, she's talking about her two mothers. How she spends her day with her two mothers. At the beginning, I didn't really get the book, because I always go through any book that I get for my son. So I was going through and I couldn't understand, and eventually I got it. That this is what they're trying to show. That little children, they are getting confused. This is something that is against fitrah. This is something that goes against nature. How can we accept it? This is why it's so important to keep reading, keep reminding ourselves, because every time you come across such ayat, then you realize this is something serious. How can a person even hate something that's bad when he cannot even distinguish between what is bad and what is good? When we don't even distinguish between the two, how can we hate it? Hating is the next step, right? Constantly, what have we been seeing? The well-wishing that the prophets had for the people. That they looked beyond themselves. They didn't just think, oh, let the people do whatever they want. No, they corrected them, they reformed them. And this is something that we need as well. Go ahead. Anything that you hate for the sake of Allah is a means of increasing your iman and taqwa. Shamelessness, that when a person does not have any shame left, any hayat left, that is the root cause of many, many evils. إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحْيِ فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. When you don't have hayat, then do whatever you wish. So when this leaves a people, then many, many evils become common in the society. We tend to hate people more than we hate the crime. And this is why we cannot wish well for the people. We cannot talk to them nicely. We cannot speak to them. We cannot correct them. Because we hate them. We develop a lot of hatred for them. The moment we see them, we cringe. The moment we see them, we turn away. If we are like that, then we're not going to be able to help the people at all. So the main thing is to hate the crime. That sometimes little children, if they do something wrong, what are they told? You're a bad boy. You're a bad girl. If you tell a child you're a bad boy, you're a bad girl, what is he going to think eventually? I am bad. So I'll do whatever I want to do. So the way of correcting people is not to tell them they are bad. The way of correcting people is make them realize what they're doing is bad. This is why many parents say when they tell their children that you're a good girl, you don't do this stuff. This is not something that you would say. This is not something that would come out of your mouth. Then they feel that I'm supposed to be a good person and this act does not suit me. And then they will stay away from such behaviors. We think hating something in your heart is the only thing that we need to do. This is why we consider it to be the first step. Whereas the first step is to stop with your actions and then your tongue. And then if you can't do anything, then you hate with your heart. And what is that? The weakest of iman, right? So if this is the state of people that they think, oh, you should only hate in your heart, then it shows the kind of iman that people have. We listen to the recitation.